my name is Christine and I am a tutor on Chegg Tutors. Today we'll be discussing the concept of deflation. Now, deflation in definition means falling prices. In other words, if we look at the percentage change in prices, which we abbreviate with the letter P, that percentage change must be negative. Another way of saying this, if you know calculus, is that the derivative of the price level has to be negative. I want to contrast this right away with disinflation. You might also hear the term disinflation. Disinflation is still inflation, but a lower amount of inflation, which means that prices are rising, but not as fast as they had been. Deflation is the falling of prices. We get deflation when there are too few dollars chasing too many goods. This usually results from a decrease in the amount of dollars in the economy. This can also result from the increase of the number of goods that need to be purchased. I'll go into a little more detail on those. So we understand that money and the supply of money is directly correlated to prices. When we have more money in the economy, prices will rise. Why? Because we have the same number of goods, but we have more dollars to go around. So it must be that prices for each of the goods is going to go up when there's more money in the economy. The exact opposite is true when we take money out of the system. When we lose dollars, we have less dollars in the system. Each dollar becomes worth more, and that means that we can buy more goods. Prices will fall when we take money out of the system. Let me put that another way. If you had $10 and 10 goods to buy, you might think that if all the goods are the same, they would be about $1 each. When you take money out of the system, and so perhaps now you have $5 but the same 10 goods, you still need to buy those 10 goods. Those 10 goods might end up and should end up being about 50 cents each. Why? Because you only have $5 to buy 10 goods. And so you see that when you take the number of dollars out, prices have to fall. And when you take those $5 away and you're left with $5, each of those dollars is worth more. Why? Because now instead of one good, you can now buy 2 goods with that same dollar. So the value of the dollar will go up and prices will fall. And when prices fall, that's deflation. Another way to look at this is to use the velocity of money growth equation, which you may have already learned. The velocity of money growth equation says that the change in the price level will have to equal the change in the money supply plus the change in velocity minus the change in real GDP. Now, the money supply is what we just talked about. It's how many dollars in the economy. So if we insert more dollars into the economy, the percentage change in M will go up. The velocity is just simply how many times money has to change hands to buy the same number of goods. The change in Y is just going to be how many goods are in the economy. In other words, if the money supply doesn't change, it's 0. And if the velocity doesn't change, it's 0. So we have 0 plus 0. But what happens if production and the number of goods in the economy goes up? What happens if we have 5% more goods? That's a negative 5. That must mean that the percentage change in prices is also 5. How does this work? Well, instead of changing the money supply and having fewer dollars, we have the same number of dollars but more goods to buy. So going back to my previous example of having $10 and 10 goods to buy, now we might have $10 but 20 goods to buy. We have more goods but the same number of dollars. That means that if all goods are the same, on average we might expect that each good would be worth $10 first, and then when we double the number of goods, those prices have to fall to about 50 cents. We still see deflation even if we have the same number of dollars in the economy. This is explained by the velocity money growth equation. So we might see that prices change because the number of dollars in the economy changes, but we might also see prices fall when there are too many goods increasing too quickly and not enough money to keep up with it. Now, why might deflation be bad? Deflation can be really bad for the economy because firms have to buy goods first before they can make their final product. So if you're a baker, you have to buy a lot of flour before you can make and sell your bread. If prices are falling, that means that you buy your flour. After you buy your flour, prices are falling, and now you have to sell your bread for cheaper than you would have if you sold it when you bought your flour. In other words, it makes it really difficult to be a producer in an economy with falling prices. If you have falling prices, you have to pay more for your flour than you can sell your bread. This is why it's really important when we're managing our money supply to always increase the money supply when we have positive change in production. So for instance, we assume that our GDP will increase each year. It's really important that when our GDP increases, we also increase the money supply. If we don't, we might start to see deflation. And if we see deflation, it puts firms in a really tough spot because they have to buy their inputs at higher prices, and then prices fall when they have to sell their output. So, I hope you now understand what deflation is and what the impacts of deflation can be on the economy.